The three religious who died a violent death were massacred in a revolt of the Indians of the mission of San Francisco de los Arenales, right? Or in English, arena, what we have called today arena, right? These Indians of a restless nature were probably Tamanakis. Tamanakis is a group of who they call Caribs, is a group of Galibis, a group of Garanos, who lived on the Tamana mountain. So hence Tamanakis, the name Tamana came from that tribe, right? Already on 2 occasions, they had wanted to attempt the lives of their missionaries. And hear my birds sing in the background. First time in 1691, they had plotted to assassinate the rebels that the rebel fathers was telling you they were calling the lions. That is Reverend Fathers Esteban de San Feliz and Marco de Vique, who warned in time, owned their salvation only to their probably plight. I've seen 3-4 eyes here, heights in the forest. And on another occasion, they had been on the verge of drowning the Reverend Father Gabriel de Barcelona by taking him across the river of the Caroni in their boat. For a long time, they had therefore formed the project of revolting when, in the last November 1699, arrived successively at the mission, then presided over by the Reverend Father Esteban of San Feliz, Brother Ramon de Figueroa, and the Reverend makes Father Marco de Vique. The latter, having passed through San Jose de Oruña, gave notice that the new governor, Don Jose de Leon y Cales, the successor of Don Sebastian de Rosetta, would go in the interior, probably, that's the interior of this island, Kairi, in December to the mission to visit. However, the Indians knew that this governor was severe, that's the same one they call in the lion, and that he had already punished something of their pickaxes or healing sorcerers. So he had punished some of them already, like he slaughtered a couple of them already. Of the mission of Naparima, right? So it wasn't like the Indian, the so quote unquote Indians, the Tamanakis and the different other Galibis and Guaranos and all of them and the Palenques and them. It wasn't like there wasn't links, because you hear they describing what was happening and they're letting you know that all these Indians here, according to them, they call them Indians, was linked, right? Seized with fear, they determined, these Indians here, determined to finish once and for all the Spaniards they had in the would be at hand, probably had in the encomienders, and that time would be at hand. The plan of the conspiracy was to put to death the monks on the morning of the 1st, that's the 1st of December, and then to lie in ambush in the forest to unexpectedly fall on the governor and his suite. He was carried out from point to point, or it was carried out from point to point. In this mission, there was then a Noah church under construction, and on Tuesday, December the 1st, 1699, day of the governor's visit, the Reverend Father Esteban de San Feliz had, as usual, called Indians at work after Mass. It was only 2. All the others stood in their huts and armed themselves with their arrows and puzzles. I yet to figure out what these puzzles is, because it puzzled them, so they describe it as puzzles. So now it's puzzling me in my research, but we'd figure it out later on. One Spanish carpenter, Banabera of Tegliso, named Thomas de Luna, presided over the work of the construction. This would be a T, right? To create a quarrel, the 2 Indians began to carry out the orders that they had been given to them in a probably careless manner. When they're careless, were given some. All right, but you hear the scene here after. Shocked by their clumsiness, the Father Esteban was imprudent enough to tell them that he would inform the governor of their conduct to punish them. At this time threatened, one of the Indians struck him on the head, violent, of the spade. Well, he hit him with a spade, right, with which he works, right? At the same moment, the other Indian throws himself on the carpenter and stabs him with the tool he holds in his hand. So these men wasn't playing, right? All 2 immediately uttered the war cry, and all the Indians in arms joined them. all covered with sage. Father Esteban drags himself to the church and kneels before the image of Saint Virgil. The Indians for it followed until then and finished him off with arrows and arrow, as it says, lit, whatever that means. Another group of Indians at the same time, another group now, because this was a world, a countrywide, a Kairi-wide planning event here, right? And you'd see later on. Another group of Indians at the same time, so much, goes to a place remote from the mission where the thing start, where the Father Marco de Vique had retired to read the hours canonical ones. He retired to read the Bible, right? They save of arrows and passo me with blows of puzzles. That is what you get reading for reading the Bible, right? At this moment, Brother Clamon de Figueroa was busy preparing the religious mass, probably. He, learning of their death, instead of trying to flee, hear what you do, right? Like some of these people who they convert right now in this present day and time, instead of running away from danger, here's what they do. He, holding of a crucifix, probably, and kneeling on the threshold of the kitchen door, right? He kneeling down to pray when he's supposed to be running. Resigns himself to death, which he receives, beam all, with axes and puzzles. The Spanish thus massacred. The Indians tied ropes to them at their feet and one by one dragged them to a ditch, dug in replacement of the new church. So when there was going to build the church, they used it as a burial ground for to bury pieces of wood. They piled them up there, 4 tons, and covered them with a little earth. That's how much bodies they deal with when the revolt, right in that little space there. This bloody drama was succeeded by a vile farce of devastation and desecration. The Indians plundered, and to the plundering of the church and the presbyteries, doors, windows, altars, everything is pulled down and torn to pieces. All right, burn down all them false religion, you know what I mean? The first burning down all them false religion, not no Rasta, man. Clothing and the ornaments of the church torn into strips and converted to guimiocos, that is to cover their nudity. They use it that the wine used for the sacrifice of the mass is drunk, and the holy oils are scattered on the ground. The vases or the vases are shamefully desecrated and fractured into small pieces to serve as ornaments. The statuettes of the choir of the church in colored wood, the infant Jesus, the Blessed Virgin, and the Saint Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of the mission, are transported to the public square, and there, to the laughter of the crowd, mutilated by different indecent manners. You understand? Their thirst for revenge thus satisfied, the Indians went to ambush in the forest to put an end to the governor and the Spaniards of his suite. We ain't finished there, but just to show you what they used to do. Right now we have people who indigenous to this island and think they somehow come from Africa or some kind of thing, venerating the infant Jesus and the Blessed Virgin Mary and these different saints. When the Indians, who is the blood ancestors, who was here, who they came and met here, and who didn't come from Africa, carried it in the public square and desecrated, right? How far have we come? Leaving the city on November 30th, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, to pay his visit to the mission, Gift, as the governor done, Jose de Leon y Cales, accompanied by the contador or the intresorcir, Don Nicolas de Sales de Escribano of Gref, proud Don Malio de Aponle of the barber surgeon, Jose Morales, and 2 soldiers arrive at nightfall at Vaniominda de Arauca, what we call in Arauca today, right? Where he passed the night. Right up here where the curse says, right? By day, the following day, the governor set out for the mission with all its suite, augmented by the Reverend Dominican Brother Juan de Mocin Sotomayor, then doctrinaire parish priest of the encomiendas, encomendadores, or commanders, Luis and Aniceto Paclicio, in all 9 Spaniards, arrived on the edge of the Kairi, that's the same Kairi River, right? He found 3 Indians who presented themselves as having been sent by the religious of the mission, by the religious leaders of the mission, to take him across the river and to serve as his guides. It was spies who were to take him to Terra Buscad. Not having the slightest suspicion of revolt of the mission, he confided in them. Both he and all his retinue embarked in the canoes and passed over the other bank of the river without accident. But halfway from the forest, they were suddenly assailed by the Indians, who killed them all with arrows. Except Lion, all except probably Lion of one of the 2 encomendadores, who, although seriously wounded, managed to save himself. Always the one who's doing the most evil does end up getting away in the end, and most likely. Managed to save himself and to go to San Jose de Orunia, or Rufia. I think they have a little typo here, but we'll see there. Where he brought the news beyond the, beyond whatever fee is. The Indians, after having consumed in the same day this second and most considerable massacre, so they start the battle in the morning. The next phase of the battle, they completed. They now return to the mission, which they sacked. Then they went to a mountain not far away, as I told you in videos before that the elders told us about them going to a mountain and jumping off. They told the elders them story that matching up into, they thought they commit suicide, but here you would hear what the Spanish say had happened, right? To a mountain not far away, algo descent, probably that of Tamanax, where they were counsel and decided to reach the edge of the, no doubt, the hope of succeeding in saving himself among the Guaranos of the Delia of Orinoco. So some typo happened here. But we're going on. At the news of the revolt of the Indians of San Francisco de los Arenales, the whole city took up arms. Fearing that when he carried the news to them now, the whole city took up arms, fearing a general uprising by Chile. The Cabildo, taking the government in his own hands, immediately decided to march of a detachment to watch the Slacks revolts. 2 days after the event, the 3rd of December, the Maiz of Campo, Don Pedro de Fernandez, de la Vega, set out, and you hear all these names, they react all these things in movies now, and they didn't know it's the Battle of Arena they're talking about, right? Set out the head of Spaniards and 100 Indians. So when they're telling you now in the social studies brainwashing records in schools that they used to do some years ago, we used to be in primary school, when they're telling you the Indians, the Caribs used to fight against the Arawaks and kill them out and things, there was a part of the trip, this wasn't no difference in the people and them. The Caribs and the Arawaks was all Arawakai by different tribe names, right? And they were fighting against the ones who sold out, right? And you would see plenty of them. You'd see the Nipoyos, and them was part of the ones who formed and aligned themselves with the Spaniards and things, and they were the enemies of the ones who didn't want them there. Even though they were family, they were traitors against the island. And so that is why they was fighting against one another, and not because they came and met them fighting. They caused that to happen when they invaded, right? So we carrying on. And after having ascertained of the flight of the rebels to the east, after they leave and they run to the east and the mountains of Tamana, right, return to profess to protect the city against the aggressors who would present themselves. The country, the whole of the island, Kairi, remaining quiet, the Cabildo shortly afterwards sent Captain Don Vicente with a detachment of 30 Spaniards and 100 sellouts, right, in pursuit of the revolt. He reached them on the way and harassed them 3 days. But when they arrived at sea, here's what happened now. Here's what they record happened. The Indians threw themselves, because we hear our elders say they threw themselves off the cliff and committed suicide. But here what the Spaniards them saying, the Swarthy Spaniards them, the Swarthy melanated woolly head Spaniards them. They say they threw themselves into an impassable lagoon bordered by the Cocotiers Beach in the Bandil East, and reached an island where they found themselves safe from his blows. So that's what happened. governor or whoever, Gift Yacente, unable to reach them any longer, returned to San Jose de Uruna. It was the Indian general, so there's the Uruna I was telling you about. There was Urufia, San Jose de Urufia is San Jose de Uruna. It was the Indian general Antonio de la Cruz who undertook to dislodge them with his men, and under the commander-in-chief of Don Diego Martinez, he laid siege to their islet. So they went on an island slightly off Kairi, one of our islets there, right, that you could see from probably all Galera Point and those places, and soon starved them. So he laid siege to them on the island, on the islet, and laid siege to them and soon starved them. The unfortunate woman was then seen with horror, Indian mothers, breast dried up by hunger, walnut, and this is how the writings is, their tender infants to escape their cries heartbreaking, and then drowned themselves. A great many Indians also went to seek death in the waves rather than surrender to the enemy, right? So this would where the elders talk would tie back in. Rather than surrender, they went to seek their death in the waves, right? The others, 84 in number, men and women, and some accounts in the earlier accounts, all these other writers say they captured all of them. Here they give an exact number. They said 84 in number, men and women and children surrendered at discretion. And they get in that citation here from M. de Aguiano, Vida de father of some Pamplona. There's in their records, by the way. Joseph History of where they have Trinidad, part 2, which is Kairi, and chapter 4. So this is where they get the citation from. So they're giving an exact number, right? And were led to the capital where they arrive on January 2nd, 1700. So all after in these, they take them a month to reach Puerto, what do you call it, boy? Puerto Españoles, Puerto de la Españoles or something like that, Port of Spain, right? So it take them a month from the east to reach there. There, they were tried and all condemned to death, except the women and children under under 12 years of age, who were re-elected slaved, not Africans, Indians. Indians here, look at it right here. They say Indians were slaved, right? And divided among the Spanish families, the Noes. Thus ended the bloody revolt of the Indians of San Francisco de los Arenales. This mission struck anathema, never again rose from its ruins, and it would be possible to indicate the exact site today. The site today is certain. The event had a great impact in Spain and throughout Spanish America. Yeah, you hear me? That's how dread that revolt was, and that's why I keep referring to it all the time before this video.